I spent a week on the couch because I couldn't walk. I was that exhausted. I was cognitively off. I could not follow just regular conversations like, hi, how are you? How are you doing? My brain was very tired. I remember my daughter asked me a question. She wanted help with her schooling, and I read the question. And after reading the question, I had to lay down. I couldn't follow like movies, sitcoms, 30-minute sitcoms. I could not follow the sitcom because my brain was so tired. And I'm talking about little silly sitcoms where little kids can watch it and be laughing and enjoying it. And I couldn't do that. I was cognitively exhausted. At one point, I had constant air hunger. I was walking around like constantly feeling like I couldn't get enough air. It felt like I was drowning. It was so uncomfortable. One point, I felt like I was outside myself, watching myself. My name's LK Way. I'm the wellness writer for the True Age Now blog, as well as the wellness coach for my own personal wellness brand, Wellhouse. And I'm going to talk to you about my experience with having a dysregulated nervous system and what I did to overcome that. I had so many symptoms, and I was very surprised to learn how much or what the lack of help that is available to you if you're dealing with a sick nervous system or a dysregulated or a distressed nervous system. Essentially, I was stuck in the fight or flight state. And ironically, I had just finished up maybe like months prior with a wellness certification. And here I was unwell. And I thought, this is embarrassing. I'm supposed to be well. But anyway, I didn't know that my body was so stressed. I did not know I had put so much stress on my body. Looking back, it makes sense because there was so much I was doing, so much I was trying to accomplish. I had a lot of loss as far as like goals that I had made that I did not achieve. I had 10 years worth of work just to be deleted. I'm an author. I have my own publishing company, but at that time, I was using KDP, independent publishing platform, because it was super easy, very intuitive, free. You got your books everywhere, and so I used it. And long story short, I used a Dr. Seuss quote, and they were like, "Hey, you got to take that down, or else we're going to delete your accounts." I'm like, "Okay, sure, I'll take it down," but they had deleted my account already, and I couldn't get the account back, and I lost all my work that was on their site. And two of my computers that I had my backup files on both broke. So I didn't have my backup files. And I'm like, I know I just did not lose all my work for all these books. And I had an investment with this company called Novatech that was a scam, and I lost money in that. I'm not going to get into detail with that, but that was it just came at a really bad time for me and my family. And some other things that happened that were just too much at that time. And all I remember is my husband saying to me, "Man, you look like I sense like a heaviness sitting on you." Right before I had that first panic attack, he's like, "I sense this heaviness sitting on you." And I'm like, and I was so heavy laden that I couldn't even respond to that. I just looked at him like, because I was exhausted from trying to accomplish different things in my life. All of it was pretty much financially driven. And to work so hard. I mean, there were days I didn't go to sleep. I stayed up all night, you know, and to see it come to naught, to come to nothing, it was just at that time felt like too much. But I didn't deal with it. I just kept going. And that was my mistake. Some of the symptoms that I had, back-to-back panic attacks, dizziness, nausea, constant air hunger, couldn't follow conversations, couldn't communicate as effectively as I would like. The conversation just would not come out right. I had to sleep sitting up because I felt like if I laid down all the way, I would just suffocate in my sleep. I had very terrible bowel issues. I almost got agoraphobia because I had shaky legs. I couldn't drive because I would just feel so dizzy, like things were spinning. Um, I was so exhausted. I had to take several naps throughout the day just doing regular household chores. Those are just some of my symptoms. The first panic attack I had, I was just cleaning my house. I wasn't doing anything scary or out of the ordinary. I was just doing what I normally do, cleaning my house. And I felt a numbing pain in the back of my head, the back of my arm. My heart was beating really fast. My hands were like a little shaky, but had like the pins and needles feel in them. And my heart was beating really fast. So I thought I was having some type of heart issue. So I went to the emergency room. They put me on an EKG and like, everything's fine. There's nothing wrong with you. And I'm like, okay. But I went back the next day because I'm like, no, something is very wrong. I still have that same feeling. And I was having panic attacks. So it would just go away, then it come back and go away. And it was very intense. If you've ever had a panic attack, you feel like you're having a heart attack. They're very intense. And so this went on. And I had back to back to back panic attacks, excruciating, like just terrible. I did not know what was going on. And I'm somebody that prays. So I would still pray. I pray every day. I get up in the morning and I pray whatever time the Lord wakes. I just spend some time with him praying. And he spoke to my heart and he said, you're having panic attacks. So I'm like, oh, that's it. That ain't nothing. So I'm like, I'll just think happy thoughts, you know? And that's what I tried to do, but that did not work because I still had my symptoms continue to intensify. So I'm like, if this is panic attacks, it ain't making no sense, because if you have panic attacks, all you have to do is just change how you're thinking and they go away. And because I wasn't dealing with the nervous system that was sick, none of my symptoms were going away. It was intensifying. And so this brought temporary comfort. And so my symptoms continued to get worse, and I experienced all the things that I listed before. I remember it took me a while to go into my own living room. I spent most of my time in my room because my living room is where I had my first panic attack. So there were months I wouldn't go in my living room. I just stayed in my room. I almost got agoraphobia because my legs are so shaky. I didn't want to walk anywhere because I felt like I was going to lose my balance. I felt like my next step was going to be my last because my symptoms were so intense. My body was so weak. I had numerous doctor's visits, numerous emergency room visits. And I apologize if I repeat myself. I'm just trying to make sure that I state everything that I went through. And I had so many different symptoms. I had blood work done. One of the things that I did do that was very extreme was that I cut all sugar out my diet, which I'm really glad I did, because it turned out at that time I was pre-diabetic. I got all my blood work done. Like I said, I went to the doctors numerous times to try to figure out what was wrong with me. The doctor didn't even tell me I was pre-diabetic. And the reason why I cut out sugar, because I knew in my heart, I felt the Lord telling me, you need to stop eating sugar. You're eating too much. And I could feel it in my body. I would eat sugar. I would get shaky. I would get dizzy. And I knew in my heart, like, I'm eating too much sugar. So I cut the sugar out. And like I said, I'm glad I did, because I was pre-diabetic and my doctor never told me. I found out later when I was going to other doctor's visits, again, trying to figure out what was wrong with me because I had all these symptoms. And I think maybe she just wanted to focus on the more serious symptoms. Maybe I can't think of a reason why she wouldn't tell me, but it's our responsibility to look at our chart and know what's wrong. But I was so distraught at that time. I just wanted to find out what's wrong with these symptoms. How do I make them go away? So I kicked sugar. I went on a raw vegan diet as well as part of changing my eating, because I really was addicted to sugar. I had gestational diabetes with 2 of my pregnancies. So I knew that I was feeling those same symptoms again. So I knew I had to kick the sugar and change my diet. Like I said, I'm really glad I did, because I was on my way to having diabetes and my doctor didn't even tell me that. I did have some deficiencies that came back with my blood work. I had a little low iron. It wasn't really that low. It's just a little low. I had low vitamin D. I fixed my deficiencies. I still had a bunch of symptoms in my body. And I remember getting very desperate. I remember getting very distraught, getting very depressed. I remember being very depressed. I remember depression sitting on me very heavy. When I deal with wellness, I deal with spirit, soul, and body, because when I went through this whole ordeal, I literally had to approach wellness from a spirit, soul, and body perspective. A lot of the things I'm telling you are the physical symptoms I felt, but I felt some mental symptoms. I had severe anxiety. I was very scared of my symptoms because, like I said, I felt like my next step was going to be my last. I literally felt like so weak in my body that I was going to pass out any minute. I didn't understand at the time that my body was using so much energy because being stuck in a fight or flight state, which is essentially what was wrong with me. I was stuck in a fight or flight state, uses a lot of energy. I didn't know that. So I was still trying to do what I needed to do throughout the day, happened to take many naps, couldn't walk to my own mailbox at one point, had to spend a week on a couch. So I got very scared of being so tired. And then I got scared to sleep because when I would try to rest, I couldn't rest. I couldn't rest. So here I was very tired, feeling like I was going to pass out. But then when I tried to rest, I couldn't rest. And so in my prayer time, the Lord spoke to me, and this is on two separate occasions, but on one occasion, and I recorded what I felt he was saying, and I'm so glad I did because I got confirmation of this. But he said, you need to change the way you're responding. You're afraid of what you're feeling, and you need to rewire your brain. That's what he said. He said you need to rewire your brain. And I'm like, okay. And then on a separate occasion, because again, these symptoms were intensifying. So I was going to him in prayer, like, I need this to stop. I can't stand these symptoms. This is interfering with my daily life. I can't do the things I need to do on a daily basis. I need this to stop now. And he said, your parasympathetic system is damaged. I didn't even know what a parasympathetic system was. I'm like, what is that? So I had to go look it up. And I saw, and it made sense. It's like, oh, and that's the part of your nervous system that transitions you out of a fight or flight state. So real quick, I'm going to just explain that. You have a nervous system, and part of your nervous system is an autonomic. So you have part of your nervous system, which is called the autonomic nervous system. And within that nervous system, you have a sympathetic nervous system and a parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic is in charge of the fight or flight. So that's when you have a real emergency and your body braces you for impact, either fight or you freeze, right? And you're releasing cortisol to help you brace for that scary situation. And then the parasympathetic system is supposed to usher you into a state of rest. Well, it wasn't ushering me into a state of rest. So essentially I was stuck in being in a fight or flight state where my body was just tense all the time. It was releasing cortisol. So that's why I was having all these symptoms. My body is thinking that you're in an extreme a state of emergency right now, but I wasn't. But because of the stress I put on my body, it thought I was. So the Lord spoke that in my heart. And because the symptoms continued to come, because I was dealing with so much fear and anxiety, I really just kind of put that all away that he told my heart. And I just continued to get worse and get scared. I mean, for a little while I got better, but then I just got worse because new symptoms began to come, and it scared me so bad because I'm like, what is this? This has to be more serious than that because the symptoms just felt so intense. And I had also the mental symptoms, right? So I already told you one of them was anxiety. I was very scared of what I was feeling in my body. I had intrusive thoughts. And again, when you deal with wellness, when you deal with being well, you need to deal with soul, spirit, soul, and body, because I had nervous thoughts of my own. But I believe that when we are in a weakened state, demonic entities leverage that. They take advantage of that. So I had very intrusive thoughts like, your next step is going to be your last. I lost a lot of weight. Now, I wanted to lose some weight, but I didn't want to lose that much weight. And I remember looking in the mirror and not liking the way I look. I was like, I don't want to be this skinny. This is too skinny. And before I even experienced this in real life, I saw myself in my imagination one time. It was like a vision I had. And I saw myself really skinny. And I said, what am I going to do to get that skinny? I didn't even like it then. And so just a little caveat, when you're dealing with me, you're looking at anything that has to do with my channel or wellness, I deal with spirit, soul, and body. So you're going to hear that. This is all a part of who you are. You're a spirit. You have a body, or you have a soul, and you live in a body. So anyway, I remember getting these intrusive thoughts, and I looked in the mirror. I saw myself skinny, and the intrusive thought was, look at you, you're wasting away. And I just had all these negative thoughts and these visions of myself. I remember I was walking down the hallway and I saw myself dead on the couch, and I'm like, like I would just get so scared, like, no, I don't. And so I had to deal with those intrusive thoughts. And I'm sorry, I'm looking at pop-ups that's coming on my phone. So if you see my eyes go over here, I'm looking at some pop-ups that's coming up on my phone. I apologize. But I was scared of those thoughts. And I had enough spiritual knowledge and understanding to combat those thoughts. But I was already so weak in my body that sometimes it was just so intense, to deal with the physical weakness and to deal with the intrusive thoughts of you're wasting away, you're going to pass out, your next step is going to be your last step. I mean, these are the types of thoughts. And when I say intrusive, let's just take a moment to understand that. An intrusive thought is a thought that just enters into your mind. It's not your thought. You're not thinking that thought. And I think this is why people that have had this have ended up in the insane asylum or the mental institution or a mental home, because they don't understand that, or they don't know how to get that to stop. And I remember I'm like, no. And sometimes that's all I could say was nope. And I wouldn't say it out loud, because then you start looking crazy, because you already look crazy. And I did look crazy. I will tell you some of my crazy looking moments in just a moment. But in my heart, I'm like, nope. And another part of my spirit, I'm still talking about the mental though. So let me continue with the mental, then I'll get on to the spiritual. I know I've been kind of speaking of spiritual aspects of this throughout, because I'm talking about how the Lord was speaking to me, but I'll get more into the spiritual in just a moment. But just the way it would play on my mental, I felt very defeated at one point. I remember feeling depressed. The depression was insane. I'm a very joyful person. I laugh really easily. I really do look at life like the glass is half full. I have joy in my heart. And so when I couldn't laugh, I would look at stuff that was funny and could not laugh. And that's when people around me knew something is wrong with her, because she is like not the same person. And I wasn't. I couldn't laugh. I had no joy. I would get up in the morning and feel like depression was standing there ready to follow me around all day. And if I could see that spirit in the spirit at that time, maybe that's what I would have seen. I don't know. But that's how it felt. And I just had depression on me. I remember being in my house and feeling like it wasn't my house. I felt like a stranger in my own home. And this kind of overlaps mental and spiritual, but I felt like I was outside my body watching my body. You know how I told you we're spirit, soul, and body? I felt like my spirit, soul, and body wasn't all together. That's the best I can describe that. It's like I wasn't all together. It's like my spirit, my soul, and my body, we're not all in sync. I felt like I wasn't all in sync there. It was just a strange feeling. And I remember, I'm going to just use this as a way to segue into dealing with the spiritual aspects of this. And I remember, because at this point in time, I wanted a supernatural healing. The Lord had already spoke to my heart, telling me, it's your parasympathetic system. You need to change the way you're responding to what you feel. That went out the window, because like I said, the symptoms were so intense. I had new symptoms come. I had heart palpitations that scared the crap out of me. I mean, it would be like my heart just beating in the poof. It would feel like somebody punched me in the chest. My heart would just beat normal, boom. And I'm like, whoa, what is that? It scared me. So I'm like, why do I feel like that? What's wrong with me? It would just scare me so bad. And I remember I got a prophetic word one time, and she said, you're going to go through a very humbling experience. That scared the crap out of me when she said that. I didn't care about all the positive stuff she said. She said some really positive stuff. I only focused on that. I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? I'm already suffering. Oh my God. I don't want to be like Joe. I was like so scared. Like, what does that mean? I'm going to suffer. And I was in so much pain. And I had, I think at that time, my brother had already passed away. So I didn't know what that meant. So I was very afraid of that prophetic word. And I remember sitting on my bed, and this is when I looked crazy. This was one of my you look crazy moments. And I do see how people go crazy when they experience this, or any disease or sickness where no one knows what's wrong with you. And they're trying to tell you that it's all in your head, which is what my doctor basically said, like, oh, it's not your nerves. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, why isn't thinking happy thoughts working? I'm thinking happy thoughts. I still feel this crap in my body. I'm not imagining these symptoms, but I'll talk more about that in just a moment. But I was in my bed and I was so scared of that prophetic word. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't want nothing bad. And I was rocking back and freaking forth. You know how you see people that are like in the movies and have a straight jacket on? They're like, yeah, I was doing that. And my husband saw me. He was like, that look in his eyes was like, and then I saw him take a position of authority when he saw that. And it's really important as believers that when we see situations that we utilize our authority. And he said, no, he said, you need to get up. And I felt Jesus. Now I'm somebody, I've actually seen Jesus in the spirit before. Not going to get into that right now, but I felt like he was standing right behind my husband. And I don't know why the Lord didn't open my eyes to see. Maybe I was so freaked out. I probably would have freaked out. But I felt like he was standing right behind my husband, and I felt like he said, "Take your mat and get up," like stern, like get up, like my husband, like the same way. And I'm like, and I remember having this moment of like, why is he talking to me like that? I don't feel well. And so later, I began to understand that that authority that my husband was displaying, and even Jesus. I believe Jesus was standing by me. I could feel him. I felt him there, and he spoke to my heart, and he said, "Get up, get your mat and get up." And it was very authoritative. It was very get up, you know. And so I got up. I went to the store. I was about to bust out crying in the store. The whole time I was there, I felt like I was going to unravel. And the reason why my husband told me to get up is that we had something to do. We had somewhere to go, and I didn't want to go. I wanted to sit in my bed and rock back and forth and think about what a terrible prophecy I had gotten. And turns out that prophecy did come to pass, and it wasn't some big terrible thing. It was true. This experience I went through with having a dysregulated nervous system was extremely humbling. And there was some areas of my life where I was prideful that I did not know I was prideful. So anyway, I'm in the grocery store. I'm walking down the aisle, and I hear the Lord speak to me. My yoke is easy. My burden is light. You don't have to be afraid of me. And so I realized that, and I had peace in the store because of the word that the Holy Spirit spoke to my heart. I had peace on my own. And that was short-lived because I still didn't understand how to get out of the cycle that I was in, that fight or flight cycle that I was in. So I continued to have the symptoms. I continued to go to the doctors. I continued to go through the process of elimination as far as having to get my lungs checked because I felt like I couldn't breathe. Getting the heart checked because my heart was bothering me. Making sure my deficiencies were taken care of. So this was a process. And I remember I was outside one day because I was just so desperate for the symptoms to go away. And I remember just asking, like, what do I need to do for this to stop? I want this to be over and done with. I've had 3 children. I'd rather have them back to back again than go through that. It was the worst thing I've ever experienced. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I've never had so much pain physically and mentally and even spiritually. I was distraught at one point. But anyway, I was in the playground with my kids, and the Lord spoke to me again. He said, you need to treat it like a broken bone. It has to heal in stages. It's not going to heal right away. That's your body's going to heal. You got to let it heal. So I understood that for a little bit. It then went out the window because, again, my symptoms continued to intensify because I was still dealing with fear. I was still dealing with a lot of fear. Every time I'd feel a symptom, I would get so scared that what the Lord spoke to my heart would go out the window. So I was just so scared. And I remember I had a turning point. I remember my mom took the kids for a little bit because I was so weak. I was so exhausted. I couldn't do anything. I just needed to rest. And I remember I was on my way to pick them up. And out of nowhere, I just was feeling like I couldn't breathe. Now, this was, I guess, I don't know if it was a panic or an anxiety attack. I can't remember at this moment, but I was feeling this sensation like I couldn't breathe. I was calling my doctor to get the results of my x-ray of my chest because we were trying to figure out what's wrong with my lungs. Anyway, in the conversation, I couldn't talk through the conversation because I felt like I couldn't breathe. So my nurse was like, she's like, you need to go to emergency room. And my husband's like, well, we were calling for her results from her doctor's appointment. We're on our way to pick up our kids. We were just calling for our test results, for the test results. And she's like, basically the nurse is like, I don't give a crap what you calling for. If she can't breathe, you take her to the emergency room. I remember that conversation. Like, she wasn't trying to, another my husband was trying to say, she's like, listen, if she can't breathe, take her to the emergency room. I don't even know to this day if she heard anything my husband said besides she can't breathe. So anyway, I told my mom, I said, we finna go to the emergency room. My nurse said I had to go to the emergency room. I remember my mom praying for me when I was so terrified. I'm like, oh my God, I can't breathe. What's wrong? I was just freaking out. And the more that I got scared, the worse my symptoms got. So anyway, she prayed for me and I felt comfort. Sorry, another pop-up. I felt comfort when she prayed for me, and I went to the emergency room and I couldn't walk because by this time I was just almost debilitated with fear. So my legs were shaking. I had to be taken in. My husband like held me because I felt like I was going to fall down. So my husband was holding me as I walked in. I was put in a wheelchair because I felt like I couldn't walk. My legs were so unstable. It hooked me up to the machine. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. So they had to take my blood. And I should have known. When I seen a girl come in to take my blood with another person, I should have said, listen, if she don't know what she's doing, this ain't the time to experiment on me. I was already feeling like I couldn't breathe. I was in a state of panic. The chick put the thing in my arm, blood splattered. I have never in my life went to go give blood and seen the blood squirt up in the air. So the chick fishing around, can't find it because she's new and the other girl was there to help her, right? And so I should have said no, no, no. I should have said no, but I didn't because when you're in this state, you really, really scrutinize your energy. I didn't have a lot of energy for no mess. I wasn't doing no arguing. I wasn't going back and forth with nobody because I'm like, I got to micromanage this energy I got right here because every step I take is exhausting. The thoughts I think are exhausting. I was micromanaging my energy. So she fishing around. When I seen that blood shoot up in the air, I just started crying. I said, no, can you get her? Can somebody else do this, please? And the girl was like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, just please, and I just was busting out crying because I'm like, this chick don't know what she's doing. I already don't know what's wrong with me. And I don't need you in here making it worse. So the girl came in, she took my blood, I'm wiping my arm. Look at me, I'm wiping my arm because that's so weird. I like could feel that moment again. Like, anyway. So the girl came in, she drew my blood and she did a great job and she left. The doctor came in and he's like, and the reason why I went there is because I felt like I couldn't breathe. I look at the oxygen tank, I'm like 98%. He's like, you can breathe just fine. And so he's like, you might have anxiety. I'm like, anxiety can do all of that? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. So I had a moment of clarity. And it was good and it was also bad. It was a key defining moment because I had went to so many emergency room visits. And then, hold up, my doctor called back. Well, my nurse called back. My doctor did a nurse call back while I was there with my results. And she said, your chest x-ray came back good. Your lungs are good. But like I did some other tests to make sure that I could, my lungs are good. And she called back right when I was sitting there after the doctor told me I was at 98%. And that was like a double confirmation, like your lungs are good. So I'm like, dang, so I can breathe? Well, I feel like I can't breathe. So I still had the constant air hunger sitting there in an emergency room. I still felt like I couldn't breathe, but I didn't understand why. Even though the Lord told me your parasympathetic system's damaged. He said, you got to rewire the way you think. This stuff had already been spoken to my heart, but I wasn't catching it. I wasn't latching on to it. So anyway, my husband's like, listen, this is actually really good news because now we know it's not your heart and not your lungs. And that was very comforting, but it still left this big gashing, gaping question mark. Like, that's great, but how do I get back to normal? I remember in the process of this, and I'm just going to say this real quick because some of you might have sought supernatural healing, because I did. And I know I deal with spirit, soul, and body on my channel. So I want to talk about this experience, and I want to give you some encouragement, because I actually went for prayer. Now, I've served in ministry, not as a leader, just as a regular person, helping with different things that were needed. And I went up for prayer, and I don't typically do that. I remember calling my pastor at the time, my bishop at the time, and I asked him for prayer. And I never do that. I served in ministry at that time. It had been a accumulation, maybe like 15 years, 14, 15 years, where I served different auxiliaries, helping do whatever needs to be done. But going up, calling pastor for prayer, I didn't do that because I had my own relationship with the Lord. I had never been in a situation where I felt so sick, where I felt like I needed help. And so, long story short, I did have hands laid on me, and I did experience that symptom of feeling like I was outside myself, watching myself stop. So I felt like my body finally, my spirit, soul, and body snapped back in position. I did experience that supernatural healing when my bishop prayed for me. I did. So I remember like, wow, that's amazing, because I had never experienced something like that way. I never had prayed for nobody to lay hands on me. I never been sick to do it. Or if I had a sickness, I would pray myself. And I was just so weak, mentally weak and physically weak. I just needed help. But I remember wanting to know how to get spiritual healing, because I had never really pursued that before. And I remember at this point in time, I had called my leaders of the church a couple of times now. I had called them a couple of times, and it wasn't a lot, but it was a lot for me, because I'm not the type of person that would be calling them and asking them, can you do this? And can you pray for me? I didn't do that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with people that do. I'm just saying it wasn't something that I did. So they weren't used to getting that from me. And I remember one day I was struggling in my heart, because I was trying to, like I said before, I was trying to get my Benny Hinn on. Like, can you lay hands on me and make this all go away? I wanted to stop now, immediately. So I couldn't communicate. So that was one of the symptoms that I had. I couldn't communicate properly. I had thoughts in my head, but I couldn't articulate myself very well. It was just one of the symptoms that I had. And so I remember I was struggling on the inside, because I had this feeling, I had this discernment, like I feel like I'm bothering them. I feel like they don't want to help me. And I didn't trust my own feelings, because I knew that I was mentally and physically unstable. I had extreme fear. I had extreme anxiety. I had all these sensations in my body. And this is something that happened earlier in the cycle, when I was stuck in the cycle. It happened before I went to the emergency room and had that moment of clarity. But I was just really beside myself. So I'm like, Lord, I feel like I'm bothering them, but I really want to know how supernatural healing works. I've never pursued it. I never really, it's not something I was raised around. I don't know how that works. And so I was just struggling. Like, should I call? Should I not call? And I felt the Lord say, just call. Just call. So I called, and I really, my bishop at the time was very annoyed. And he told me, he said, I don't have time for this. You need to go take some medication. And I had considered taking medication. I'm so glad I didn't. And so I was like, what? And I was upset, because I'm like, listen, I'm trying to figure out how you get the Benny Hinn going. I don't want to take no medication. And now there's nothing wrong with taking medication. At one point, I actually almost took the medication. That was a very huge disappointment. And I share this disappointment because when you're going through this, you are going to experience disappointment. You're going to experience people that are maybe were there for you, not be able to be there for you, because this is something where you become very needy. You are not yourself. You become if you're a very independent person, you will see yourself really taking solitude and really taking, not solitude, I'm sorry, but taking comfort in the warmth and compassion of others. And if those people aren't the type of people that are around you, or if maybe you've extended your stay with them in that way, they will get tired of you. I experienced that. And I just want to share that to give you encouragement. You need to look at it like, okay, this ain't the walk that I have to take with you. You can't take this walk with me. So I'm going to put you over here. And I'm going to walk this walk with those who can take this walk with me. So, and it came from a spiritual leader, which for me was very devastating. I remember after that conversation, I was yelling at the top of my lungs, I don't give a crap. I didn't cuss. I think I might have said, I don't give a crap. Who is, if you're not with me, yes, I was talking to my bishop who was no longer on the phone. I'm going to get the help I need. And that's what I remember saying. I said, I'm going to get the help I need. I was yelling at the top of my voice. I know my kids probably, another crazy moment. I probably looked pretty crazy, but I was serious. And in my weakness and my mental weakness, and in that moment of defeat, I felt very defeated and alone at that moment. I'm like, I'm going to get what I need. I don't care if you ain't with me. I don't care if you're tired. I don't care if you got time. God got time. And I remember another time I had called them and I just wanted someone to come and agree with me. You know how people be having prayer partners? I actually had somebody that I was praying with at the time. Very nice, very comfortable. I felt like the Lord really orchestrated that, because my friend from church called me. She's like, I'm going through having such extreme fear. I need you to pray with me. And that was helpful for me too. So he did send somebody to partner with me in prayer. And I was called the leader because we had a very small church. There's like 6 people there, you know. So it was something that was that they said to do. If you need help, call, you know. So it was like that type of ministry. So I called, and I just wanted someone to partner with me in prayer, and because I was feeling the heart palpitations, but I didn't know that's what they were. So I'm like, what's wrong with my heart? I was just so freaked out by it. Long story short, he wasn't willing to do that. And I think it was because I'm not really sure. I feel like maybe he didn't have the faith for that. I don't know. But I know that he just was like, I don't want to get involved in that, is what I felt in his spirit. Like, I don't want to get involved in that. And I could tell. And I remember the intrusive thoughts being like, you're alone in this. You don't got nobody to be with you. I said, that's a lie. I have the Lord with me. So if they don't pick up their phone, if they don't want to talk to me, if they want me to go take some medication, I got God, you know? And that's what I had to start saying to myself when I started getting a little bit stronger. So the reason why I share that is because some of you may experience that. You may experience your spiritual leaders turning their back on you. And it's a good thing, because you get to know where people really stand, you know, and you have to give people the benefit of the doubt. You have to understand their position, you know. And I'm not justifying people not being there for you. I'm just trying to help you understand. If they met you and your relationship is built on you being independent and you not needing them for that much stuff, when you do start needing them, that's really the dynamic of the relationship changing. And maybe if you had met them needy, they wouldn't have built that relationship with you, because they'd be like, they too needy. They call me too much. I don't want nothing to do with them. And we look at men and women of God as people that we should always be able to call, always should be there for us. But they're people, they're not God. And they're not going to always be there for you. Whether it's something that they physically can't do and they want to do, or something they want to do but they don't know how to do, or if they just don't want to do it because they're fed up. Maybe you've caught them too much, and maybe to you it's not a lot. To me it wasn't a lot, but to them it may have been a lot, with other people that they got to take care of, and that's calling them, you know, because even though our church had 5-6 people in it, they still had other things, ministries and stuff that they did. So at the time that was too much for them. But for me, I knew, it let me know, okay, I need to leave you alone, because I can't deal with you and me. So I'm like, okay, no problem. And I continued to serve the ministry, feeling like I couldn't breathe, feeling like I'm going to pass out. I drove an hour and a half to church, feeling like I'm going to pass out, walk around the church, feeling like my next step was going to be my last, getting up to pray, because I was one of the intercessors, or head intercessor, feeling like I couldn't breathe. I'm sitting up there saying a prayer, feeling like I can't breathe through the prayer, crying on the podium because I was so weak. Yeah, I did that. I still served while I was going through all of this. And I'm about to bring this to a close and tell you how I got through it. There was something else I wanted to share, but you know, I'm sure it'll just come. So I got a book by Dr. Claire Weeks, and I know the Lord led me to this book. I found the book called Dr. Claire Weeks, Help and Healing from My Nerves. This book really catapulted my healing journey, because this is a doctor who went through having anxiety because of a distressed nervous system. She got out of it and she helped others. Help and Healing from My Nerves by Dr. Claire Weeks. And so she said the exact opposite of what my doctor told me. My doctor said it's not your nerves. She also was agreeing with my bishop, go take some medication. But this doctor was like, you can take medication to help with the symptoms, which when I asked my doctor for the medication and I was like, okay, is this going to help me with the symptoms? And she's like, oh, it'll calm you down. So I'm like, okay, just give it to me. So then I went back to see, okay, now what is it going to do? How's it going to, what symptoms is it going to get rid of? And then I seen it wasn't going to get rid of no symptoms. So I'm like, well, what I'm going to take this for? I'm going to take this medication and still have the same symptoms? No, thank you. So I'm like, that's dumb. It could at least knock off the symptoms. At that point, I didn't care that it wasn't going to cure me. I just didn't want to feel the pain. I had so many different symptoms, and you get rid of 2 or 3 of them, I would be good. No, it wouldn't do that. So I'm like, well, I ain't taking this crap. So anyway, her book helped me understand my nervous system, helped me understand why I feel what I feel. I still needed more help as far as the recovery process, but it's helped me to where the anxiety was gone. I had no more anxiety because it's like, oh, my nervous system just needs to heal and it's going to be uncomfortable while it's healing. When I got that understanding, I'm like, oh, so I was still in a lot of pain. I still had heart palpitations. I still occasionally felt like I couldn't breathe. The panic attacks went away pretty quick. That was something that went away like first. I had digestive issues. The dizziness tapered off. I still had extreme weakness where I couldn't walk around a lot without having to take naps. I mean, I still had a lot of different symptoms, but the panic attacks went away. The heart palpitations diminished. But I still have I had so many different types of heart palpitations. Weird. I could go, I could drive, I could walk to the store. So these are things that I was able to do again quite quickly. But I still had, and I have a course where I talk about all the different symptoms, more of the things that I felt and experienced as I go through the course. But I pretty much told you most of them here in my testimony. And so I began, as I got understanding, I began to understand how to recover. And the most profound thing that I experienced was the confirmation from my prayer time. So the Lord told me in my prayer time, you need to change the way you think. It's your parasympathetic system. It's damaged. He also told me you need to treat this like a broken bone. You're going to heal in stages. All of that, all 3 of those things were in her book. Literally, she said, you got to treat it like a broken bone. You heal in stages. Literally, it's in her book. The exact same metaphor, the exact same analogy of the process of healing with the broken bone. The parasympathetic system, she broke it down. So I was seeing this confirmation of what the Lord spoke to me in my heart. And I was like, wow. And that really solidified it for me. Like, okay, all right, this is it. And I began to heal. I had some other disappointments. I had 3 siblings pass away when I was going through this, which to this day I knew was the Lord that got me through it. My baby sister passed, my other sister passed, my brother's passed, unrelated incidences, all within a couple of months of each other while I was going through this. So it was God. That's when I was thinking about getting the medication. I actually told her, give me the medication. And I was going to go to therapy because I just felt like I can't deal with all this. I'm so sad right now. I'm so sad right now. And I literally had to take my days moment by moment. I had to go moment to moment. I could not even look at the whole day ahead of me because if I looked at the whole day ahead of me, it was too much. I had to just look at one piece of the day at a time. Yeah, I made it till lunch. Okay, then I'll make it till 12:30. I made it till 12:30. Okay, I'll make it till 1 o'clock. I had to take one step at a time. I remember when my baby sister passed, I was absolutely mortified, and I was sitting on my bed, and I had another intrusive thought, and that intrusive thought said, "You're next." I remember that like it was yesterday, and I said, "No, I said no, the hell I ain't." I said, "No, I'm not." And yeah, I said, "No, I'm not." I might have said, "No, I'm not." I feel like I said, "No, the hell I ain't," but whatever. I said no. And that was that. I was getting my strength. And I also started listening to a man named Kenneth Hagin who helped me understand healing and helped me understand walking in authority. And so when it came to the intrusive thoughts, I got strength because I began to listen to the word of God. And I couldn't meditate. Meditation is something that helped me later. I couldn't meditate when I first started having these symptoms because, like I said, I had a tired brain. I couldn't think. So I would just listen to the word, and that would be very soothing and very calming. And I'd listen to the word while I was cleaning, listen to the word while I was going to sleep. And it was very soothing and very calming. It's the first time in my life where I actually experienced the manifestation of the word tangibly, like naturally doing something to my body. Like I would feel or I'd feel pain, or I'd feel discomfort, in my stomach, like nausea, or the headaches, or so many different symptoms, or the tight band around my chest. And I just feel like the word working in my body was insane. And I'd feel it working in my heart, in my mind. I'd have peace. And so I would do that to calm myself. And I began my journey of healing. When I listened to Kenneth Hagin, he taught me how to walk in authority. So that's how I dealt with the intrusive thoughts. I just refused them. And when the scripture says, take every thought captive and bring it into the obedience of Christ, when you're dealing with thoughts, why would you have to take a thought captive? Because when we are being spoken to by demonic entities, we perceive it as a thought. So we have to take that thought and make it be obedient. No, I'm not in agreement with that. I'm not finna be next. I'm finna live long and be satisfied with long life. I had to take that attitude, and I kicked fear to the curb. I was no longer dealing with fear. Once I got fear from tormenting me, way more of my symptoms went away. And that was my experience with having a dysregulated nervous system. That's what I went through. I remember before I got through the whole ordeal saying to myself, I'm going to help people come out of this, because before I even had all this pop off, I had finished up a wellness certification, and my goal was a little bit different. I wasn't going to have helping people with a dysregulated nervous system as part of my curriculum. But when I went through this and I saw how much help there was not available, and how there was such a severe lack of understanding, I'm like, oh, I got to help people with this, because we treat anxiety as if it's a disease. It's a symptom. So my doctor was treating my anxiety, but popping pills for anxiety is not going to help me deal with a distressed nervous system. So for you, if you're dealing with anxiety, but you're not dealing with your nerves, you're not going to get better. You got to deal with your nerves. You got to heal the nerves. And so I have a course. It's a 7-week course, because this was not a quick journey. It was a process, and for me, it was very bumpy and ugly, but I have everything that I went through in a nice little course to help others. I have tons of videos too on my channel, and more that I'm uploading every day to help people as well. Because like I said, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, but I overcame it. I got to where I got rid of all the symptoms. Some of the other symptoms that I had was I couldn't stand in a long line. I felt like I was going to explode if I stood in a long line. I couldn't do long car rides. I felt like I was just going to explode in a long car ride. I'm trying to think of some of the symptoms that maybe I forgot to mention, but I can't think of any right now. But these are some of the other symptoms that I had, and now I stand in line. I'm good. I don't have the intrusive thoughts. I am better. And so what I did when I came through this, even before I even came through, I started, because I knew before I came through, I said, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to help others. I made a course. I started making it before I even got better. Like I started saying to myself, I'm going to put this in there. I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to put this in there. I'm helping with this. I'm helping with that. Because as I began to recover from certain things, I knew, like, I'm going to put this in my course. I got to tell them about this. I got to tell them about that. So now I'm well. And I have the course put together, and I have a whole different video where I talk about the course. I'm not going to talk about in this video because it's almost 50 minutes long, and I don't want to make it any longer, take up any more of your time. I just wanted to share my testimony about how I got over this. And I know it's long. And at one point I'm like, oh, I got to try to make it short. But I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to speak, and if you watch all of it, great. If you don't, great. You got what you needed to get from it. That's the key thing. And you can get over this. You do not have to spend the rest of your life on medication. If you're dealing with intrusive thoughts, you can get those thoughts to stop in the name of Jesus. You know, if you're around people that don't understand what you're going through and they're treating you like you are a burden, I can help you with that. You know, you just have to step away from those individuals. You know, this is not a season or a time of your life that you need to have them around. They're doing you a favor. You cannot have none of that around you when you're trying to recover from this. You need, if they're like dealing with you, then okay, thank you. You know, you go over there. I'm gonna be over here getting my life together because I'm gonna get out of this with or without you. That's the attitude you have to take. And really, you're gonna be okay. You know, your nervous system just needs to heal. And because it's not a common thing, our society, our medical society is more driven around popping pills and treating symptoms. And you know, when you go after this, you got like 30, 50 symptoms. I had about 20, 25 symptoms. And so you taking medication for all of that. By the time you get half of that medication, you got 10 different other problems because of the medication. And again, I'm not kicking medication. I'm just saying, if you're wanting to get to the heart of the problem, if you have a dysregulated system and you have went to the doctor and got yourself checked and you know it's not your heart, it's not your lungs, you know, you done got your blood work done and like, okay, yes, it is my nervous system, then there is help. You know, it's just a process and it's just an uncomfortable process, but you will recover. All right. So I just want to share my testimony. Again, my name is LK Way. I'm the wellness writer for the True Age Now blog. I really hope this testimony of mine was encouraging. If you're going through this, you're not alone. I went through this and I know exactly how you feel. And I'm here to tell you that you will recover. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of your life. All right. Like the video if you liked the video. Share this video with someone that you know will benefit from it. Again, I'm LK Way. You have an amazing day today.